Moving into Maplewood Crossings wasn't something I dreamed about, but it made sense. It was close to my job, and the paths winding through the woods were perfect for walks with Titan, my service dog. Titan's a sleek black Labrador, trained to help me manage flashbacks from my time deployed abroad. He's sharp, calm, and follows every command to the letter. His vest is always on when we're outside. I've memorized the disability rights law inside and out. It's essential when your life depends on a service animal. Still, I never thought I'd have to use that knowledge to deal with someone like Beverly Langston, the community board president. Beverly introduced herself with a stiff smile and a binder clutched to her chest like it held national secrets. I wasn't informed that someone with a dog would be moving in, she said, giving Titan a glare that could freeze fire. He sat quietly next to me, eyes alert but calm. I explained kindly but clearly that Titan wasn't just a dog, he was a service animal, which meant housing rules about pets didn't apply. She frowned and mumbled something about people always gaming the system, then walked off before I could say another word. That was my first red flag. Within days, she started sending notices. First, it was that my lawn grass was 1 inch too long. Then it was my house numbers being in the wrong font. The third was a warning because my recycling bin was visible from the street for an hour after pickup. Each letter ended with a bubble letter signature and a passive-aggressive smiley face. I didn't want to stir the pot. I trimmed the grass, replaced the numbers, and moved the bin. But it felt like a game, one I hadn't signed up to play. Things hit a boiling point at the monthly neighborhood meeting in the community center. Beverly stood at the podium, reading from her prepared speech, and proposed a new policy. All animals, including service dogs, would have to be tagged with community-issued badges and go through board registration. When I raised my hand to point out that this kind of rule was illegal under federal disability laws, she cut me off. "This community values order," she snapped. "And our rules come first." People shifted uncomfortably in their seats, but no one said a word. After the meeting, she cornered me by the cookie table. "If you want to play hardball, I can play harder," she whispered. Her breath smelled like stale tea and peppermint gum, and her eyes didn't blink once. The next Saturday morning, I was out on the porch enjoying a cup of coffee while Titan lay at my feet, soaking in the sun. That's when Beverly showed up. She wore her usual cargo pants and pastel polo shirt and held a spray bottle like it was a weapon. "That animal is out of compliance," she shouted, loud enough for Mrs. Martinez across the street to peek through her blinds. "No ID, no registration." I stood up calmly and said, "He's a service dog. You can't demand ID. That's not just overreach, it's illegal. And your new rule hasn't even passed a vote yet." Her face flushed purple. "You ex-military types think you're above everyone," she snapped, stepping onto the grass. "If you won't deal with him, I will." Before I could react, she pointed the bottle and sprayed Titan in the face. He yelped and stumbled back, pawing at his eyes. I rushed between them, furious but composed, and demanded to know what she had used. "Just vinegar and water," she said with a smug shrug. "Won't hurt him. But maybe now he'll behave." I took Titan inside immediately and rinsed his eyes for several minutes. His eyes were irritated, but thankfully he was okay. That was the last straw. I picked up the phone and called emergency services. 911, "What's your emergency?" the dispatcher asked. "I need to report an attack on my service animal," I replied, clearly and without hesitation. "Someone sprayed chemicals in his face. And this isn't just harassment, it's a federal crime." They assured me officers were on the way. About 20 minutes later, a patrol car pulled up, and 2 officers came to the door. I walked them through everything, from Beverly's threats to what she sprayed on Titan. And this time, I wasn't backing down. I handed over Titan's training credentials and medical certification to the officers and pointed across the street to Beverly's house, the one with the meticulously trimmed rose bushes and "No soliciting" sign that seemed more like a warning than a request. One officer stayed behind to take my full statement, while the other crossed the street to talk to Beverly. From my living room window, I watched her flail her arms like she was trying to swat down a wasp swarm, her face scrunched up like a lemon. The officer barely blinked. He looked bored more than anything. A few minutes later, both officers returned. They let me know Beverly had admitted to spraying Titan, though she insisted she was just enforcing neighborhood policies. But the officers were clear. What she did wasn't just overzealous rule following, it was a federal violation. Interfering with a service dog falls under national disability protections, and it carries real consequences. On top of that, state law also counted it as animal abuse. Then came the question, would I press charges? I didn't hesitate. Absolutely, I said. Next thing I knew, Beverly was in handcuffs, shrieking on the curb like a soap opera villain. "You'll regret this," she shouted. "The neighborhood will turn on you." Instead, the neighborhood turned out to watch. A few people stood at their mailboxes pretending to check letters. One of them muttered, "She finally went too far." Another, Mrs. Lee from 2 houses down, approached me afterward. "I should have spoken up earlier," she said, glancing at Titan. "We've all let her bully us for too long." Titan, who had recovered by then, sat alert but peaceful beside me. He was unbothered as always. But I could tell he knew something had shifted. The legal process moved fast, which surprised me. Beverly was hit with charges: interference with a service dog, cruelty to animals, and personal harassment. When her first court date rolled around, she showed up wearing designer heels and dragging along a lawyer who looked like he regretted every decision that led him there. The judge didn't mince words. He made it clear, no neighborhood rule trumps federal law, especially when it comes to disability rights. Beverly's defense crumbled faster than her composure. While the court waited on her trial, the Maplewood Crossings HOA board called an emergency meeting. Titan and I went. This time, the room was packed. No empty folding chairs. The board's vice president stood up and called for a vote of no confidence in Beverly's leadership. He cited reckless behavior, community endangerment, and legal exposure as the reasons. The vote? Unanimous. They even had new nameplates printed. Beverly's seat at the table sat empty, just a blank space and a mug that said Queen Bee, which someone quietly removed before the meeting ended. Eventually, Beverly pled guilty to a lesser charge to avoid a bigger sentence. The punishment? 30 days in county jail, a $5,000 fine, 200 hours volunteering at a local animal rescue center, and mandatory training on disability law. When the judge read the sentence, her face went through the stages: disbelief, anger, realization. She opened her mouth and muttered something weak, like, "I was just trying to uphold the rules." The judge leaned over the bench, cool and steady. "The rule that matters most, Miss Langston, is the one that protects people's rights, including the right to depend on service animals like Titan." As she was led away, Beverly glanced back at me. The usual smugness was gone. There was no fire left in her eyes, only that stunned look people wear when they realize their power has limits. She mouthed something, maybe, "This isn't over," but we both knew it was. Titan sat tall beside me, calm and collected. A picture of discipline. I reached down and scratched the back of his ears. He leaned into my palm, a silent acknowledgement that we'd gotten through it, together. Life in Maplewood Crossings hasn't been perfect, but after everything, it feels a little more like home. The air seems lighter without Beverly stomping around with her binder of bylaws and veiled threats. People wave now when I walk Titan. Some even stop to chat, to ask about his training, or thank me for standing up, not just for myself, but for all of them. It's funny how silence can break once someone dares to speak. Titan's routine is back to normal. Morning walks on the wooded trails, calm evenings by the porch, always alert, always by my side. He never asks for praise, never complains. But every time he rests his head on my knee or glances up when I reach for his leash, I'm reminded just how deep that bond runs. He's not just trained, he's loyal in a way few people ever are. The HOA, now under new leadership, has started revising their rules to reflect actual law instead of one woman's control issues. They even brought in a civil rights consultant to educate the board on compliance and inclusivity. There's still work to do, but it's a start. Real change doesn't happen all at once. It shows up in small, steady wins. Beverly? I haven't seen her since sentencing. Her house sits quiet, the roses overgrown. Sometimes, a car pulls up and then leaves again. Rumors say she's moved in with a cousin while she regroups. But honestly, I don't think about her much anymore. Because the real story isn't about her. It's about standing your ground when the world tries to shrink you. It's about quiet strength, the kind that doesn't need to shout to be heard. It's about Titan and others like him who carry burdens they never asked for and never complain. And maybe, most of all, it's about the simple truth that the strongest communities are built not on rules, but on respect. Titan and I? We're still here. Still walking. Still ready for whatever comes next. Together.